Today I'm going to share with you the 5 biggest mistakes I made as a new home educator. We started home educating when my oldest son, turned 5, and August came when he should be sitting down in school, and instead we had made the decision to home educate full time. And that's what we've been doing ever since then. But that first year was quite overwhelming and filled with fear for me because I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I didn't have anyone else to learn from around me, and that the people that I did know were new home educators themselves, and they couldn't pass on any advice to me because they hadn't experienced it yet themselves. We discussed things between us, but I really would have benefited from an experienced home educator, or at least a home educator that was a few steps ahead than me, and get advice from them and really just learn from them. And so I'm creating this video because maybe you are just starting home educating this year and you are thinking, what big mistakes is there that you can make that I want to avoid? And I want to share with you the biggest mistakes that I made in my very first year of home education. So picture this, imagine me in my first year of home education. My son is just turned 5, I'm all fresh and new and optimistic about all the things we're going to achieve. And really, I made a lot of mistakes that first year, and I could have avoided a lot of them. And these are not just silly things I'm like, oh, I wish I did that better. These are things that I genuinely, if I could go back in time, I would definitely change. And I'm sharing them with you now because you can avoid these mistakes in the first place. So I hope this is going to be helpful for you. The first mistake that I made is having no clear plan. Now, sure, I had goals and things that I wanted to do with my son, but I didn't have a clear plan of how I was going to achieve these things. I thought that if we just wake up and in the day decide what we're going to do, then that was the quickest way to freedom. I thought freedom was kind of having no plan and just waking up in the day and going, what should we do today? And asking my son, what would you like to do today? And while that sounds lovely, the reality is that it resulted in me being overwhelmed, and it resulted in chaos, and I would get to the end of the day and think, we have got absolutely nothing done today, and just be stressed about it and just not know how to keep moving forwards. And that would happen every day. I'd wake up and think, a new day, and think of all the potential and possibilities, because you have so many hours in a day, right, as a home educator. And then I'd get to the end of the day again and go, what did I even do today? And so you really do need a clear plan. And that is true whether or not you have these lofty goals for your child being 2 years ahead in their education, or it's true if you have simpler goals, like you want to read lots of good books with your child. That is a simple goal, but if you don't have a clear plan of how you're going to achieve it, the day slips away from you and it doesn't get done. Another goal might be spending lots of time exploring new places with your child, or spending lots of time outdoors. But it's not going to happen just naturally. These are very natural ways to learn, but it doesn't naturally happen because you do need to have a clear plan. Maybe you want to make lots of new friends as a home educating parent, and also get your child to make lots of friends along the way as well. Well, again, this doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of effort to make new friends within any community, and including the home educating community. So you need to have clear systems on how you're going to get this done. True freedom is not just everyone doing what they want and what feels right in the moment. True freedom exists within healthy boundaries, and that comes in the form of a plan. If you are right at the start of your home education journey, I have a free masterclass, which I'll link down below, which will help you through the very first step in your home education journey. It'll help you take that very first step when you don't really know what you're doing. So I've created that for you, and it'll be down below as well. And also I've created a guide called the UK Parents Guide to the First Year of Home Education. And it is exactly that. It is for you if you have a child ages between 4 and 6 years old, you live in the UK, and you are overwhelmed and a bit afraid of what the year holds. You don't really have a support system around you maybe. And this is really coming from me, I'm experienced in the first year of home education. I'm now going into my first year of home education with my second child, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm calm and I'm confident. And so I created this guide so that you can also go calm and confident into your first year. So I'll leave that link down below. The second mistake that I made as a new home educator was focusing on socialisation rather than focusing on building community. So you hear everywhere, home educated children are not socialised. How are you going to socialise? How are your children going to make friends? This is what you hear all the time as a new home educator. You see it in the media, you hear it from people around you, and you think, okay, I need to socialise my child. And you think, how am I going to socialise them? Let's go over here and make friends. So how are we going to do this? And you put them in clubs, you go to the library, you go on lots of outings, you go to the museums, you do tons and tons of activities. And then you get to the end of the day or the end of the year and you think, something is missing. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong, it's just that socialisation was not the goal to start with. What you're really seeking is community. And I think socialisation and community get mixed up when they're two totally separate things. And that guide I just talked about, in that guide I go through exactly how you go about finding your home education community and how it is completely different to socialisation. But I will say here, focus less on clubs and activities and things where your child is separate from you and where they go off and do their own thing and make friends over there. Instead, in order to create community, you want to be doing things as a whole family. And actually, this is easier for you as well because you don't have to be ferrying them out to all these different clubs all the time, especially if you have multiple children. Instead, focus on what you can do as a whole family. Can you go and meet up with another home educating family? And slowly by slowly, little by little, build up your home education community. Focus on community. Don't focus on socialisation. The next mistake I made is comparing myself to home educators who are years ahead of me. So we all have social media, right? And we all spend way too much time on social media, on Instagram and the like. And it is not helpful when you are a new home educator to look at home educators who are like 5 children in and so far ahead of you, and they have these picture perfect lives where everything seems to go smoothly, the children listen to everything you say, and it looks wonderful, and you think, okay, I need to do what they're doing and bring it into my life, and how can I make my life look like theirs? And it's just not helpful because for a start, your life is completely different to theirs, but also they've learned a lot as they go along, and their children are completely different to your child that you're just starting to home educate. So it's really not helpful to compare yourself. This is a very common thing that people talk about, right? Don't compare yourself to people online. But it is true. And my advice here is not simply just don't compare yourself to people online. My advice is to be very intentional about how you use social media. So what this means is block social media completely except for certain times of day. And be very careful about who you're following. So I have reduced the people that I follow on Instagram to only maybe 2 or 3 people that I really feel like are helpful to me and are keeping me in a good headspace. And I block access to Instagram completely, except for certain points of the day where I'm very intentionally going on there. And I'm just trying to keep it really intentional. So you need to block all the people that are making you feel negative, and you need to block your access to social media, dare I say it, for certain periods of the day. I do it for a majority of my day that I'm home educating my children, and then when they've gone to bed, I'll spend a bit of time on Instagram and the like. And I would encourage you to do the same, because it's easy to say, don't compare yourself to other home educators who are further on in their game than you. But I spent far too much time during my first year of home education watching all these home educating parents, homeschooling parents in America mostly, and thinking, oh, I want to be more like them. And I would take little bits from here, little bits from there. And it was just overwhelming, it was stressful, and I wouldn't recommend it. And I did spend a lot of the time during the day when I could have been with my child actually home educating them. I spent a lot of the time looking at Instagram and trying to get ideas and inspiration. So I'd recommend, during the day especially, blocking your access to social media except for certain times when you're going to use it much more intentionally. Mistake number 4 is stressing about choosing a home education method. So I'm a research kind of person. I love to research everything. If I'm going to buy anything, say I'm going to buy a blender, I have to spend like 3 or 4 nights looking up all the reviews, finding out which is the best possible blender that I want to buy. And I'm that kind of person. I want to research. But this got me into a bit of trouble in the first year because I researched so much into the home educational methods, because there are so many different ways of home educating, right? You can do Charlotte Mason, you can do Montessori, you can do Waldorf, what else you can do? You can do classical, traditional, unschooling. Like, there's so many different ways of home educating, and there's so many videos out there. There's too much information out there, really. There's so much information, and it's great, but then you get yourself overwhelmed and stressed by it all, because you do what I did and you think there must be a best way to home educate. And so you do all the research and you feel stressed and pressured to pick the best way. You're like, I must pick the best way and I must go all in on that. So for example, you go through all the Charlotte Mason podcasts and videos and you think, okay, this is the best way. And then you go all in on that. Or you do what I did, which was you think which is the best way and you can't decide. And then you just get stuck in research mode. And all of these educational approaches are great in their own rights. And there's nothing wrong with any of them. And if you want to go in on really hard on one specific style, then do that, feel free. But you are also free to just pick bits that you like from one thing and pick bits you like from something else. So you can do project time, which is taken from a more unschooling approach. You can read lots of living books from Charlotte Mason. You can do hands-on activities from Montessori. You can just pick all the best bits and do what suits your child. This is literally the beauty of home education, right? So you can tailor the educational model to your child. All of these educational models were built for some kind of school-like setup. Montessori, Waldorf, Charlotte Mason, these were all built within to work within an actual school-type setting. And we have an advantage in that we don't have to use these models. They're trying to make the educational methods work really well within these specific settings, and it's not going to be super easy just to extract methods and use them within your home. And a lot of these methods as well spend a lot of time trying to make the environments feel like home. For example, in a Montessori classroom, you'll find elements like photographs of your family and different elements and cushions and like areas that make it feel like home. And we already have an advantage here, right? Because we're literally in our homes. So don't place too much stress on trying to pick an educational model. Yes, it can be fun to research it. I love to research all the educational models. But don't get stuck in research mode and just feel free to pick what you like from any of the different models. Just pick what you like and leave the rest. And lean into your strengths as a parent. So, for example, I have always loved reading. Reading is my thing. I want to read all day long. I love it so much. And so, within our home education day, we spend a good amount of time reading. I read to my children and I read by myself as well. And we just make our home into a reading culture, somewhere that we read a lot, because I love it. My children, my little boys, all love to be active and outdoors and doing stuff. And so we incorporate a lot of outdoor time, a lot of playing outside, a lot of parks, a lot of walks. And so these have become two of the big pillars of our home education days, is outdoor time and reading. And that is because I leaned in to our natural tendencies. And don't be afraid to lean into, like I said, to your own natural tendencies. Because I loved reading, I brought that into our home and I've made a real culture about it within our home. And use the things that you are loving and that you enjoy and that your children love and enjoy, and lean into those things. And a lot of them will naturally align with one approach or other more. Maybe you're a crafty person, maybe you're creative, maybe you like music. Lean into these strengths, lean into these skills and use them within your home education days. The final mistake I'm going to share with you today is allowing fear to steal your joy. Home education is wonderful, it is joyful, it is incredible, it is difficult, but it is way more fulfilling and joyful than it is difficult. And so if you let all the fears kind of compound in your brain and kind of blind you to the amazingness that is home education, then it will steal your joy. I'm going to link here a video I made about the biggest mistake that home educators make in their first year of home education. Go and watch it. It is all about making decisions based on the feeling of being judged. Because we feel judged, and sometimes we are judged, and that clouds all of our decisions, and it allows fear to just completely steal the joy out of home education. And that's the last thing I want for you as a new home educator. As you go into your first year, I want you to be filled with joy, I want you to be calm, and I want you to be confident in the decisions that you make as a home educator. So I'll leave that video linked here, and go and watch it now, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.